The clock is ticking down. On January 30th, Congress faces a critical deadline: funding or shutdown. The stakes couldn't be higher. We've seen this before: a 43-day government shutdown just a year ago, breaking records and causing chaos. Now, with a $174 billion spending package sent to President Trump's desk, the question remains: can lawmakers avoid another disaster? The Senate has passed its part, but the Department of Homeland Security looms as a major roadblock. Democrats are furious over DHS actions and their impact, and Republicans are determined to push their agenda forward. A potential shutdown is not just about numbers, it's about the people affected. Schools, healthcare, and federal services hang in the balance. And still, the hardest decisions are yet to come. As the deadline closes in, can both sides find common ground, or will they push the country to the edge again? Stay tuned as we break down the complexities of this standoff and what's at stake. The situation in Washington is a ticking time bomb. A $174 billion funding package has been passed by the Senate, but that's only part of the story. The real challenge lies ahead, and it's all about Homeland Security. The DHS has become a flashpoint for controversy, especially after recent actions involving Immigration and Customs Enforcement, IC. Congress is divided, with Democrats calling for restrictions on funding due to growing concerns over ICE's actions, while Republicans argue that the country's security cannot be compromised. It's a classic case of political gridlock. Bipartisan cooperation is essential to avoid a shutdown, but both sides are digging in their heels. Meanwhile, the clock keeps ticking. Just like last year's shutdown, this fight could stretch the system to the breaking point. But what exactly is at stake for the American people, and how did we end up here? In the next part, let's dive deeper into the historical context that's led to this moment. To understand the current standoff, we need to look back. Government shutdowns are not new to the American political landscape. In fact, they've become a recurring theme in recent years. The most notable of all, the 43-day shutdown from last year, the longest in U.S. history. It left federal workers furloughed, services disrupted, and a bitter taste across the nation. It was a stark reminder of how the failure to reach an agreement in Washington can unravel the very systems we rely on. But this time, the stakes are even higher. Homeland Security is at the center of the debate, and the political divide runs deep. On one side, there are those who argue that immigration enforcement needs to be strengthened to protect the country. On the other, there are voices warning against overreach, especially when it comes to policies that impact minority communities. This conflict isn't just about numbers, it's about values, and it's playing out in real time on the world stage. Now we enter a critical fork in the road, but what's the next step? The situation has reached a boiling point. Just as Congress appears to inch toward a solution, a mini-crisis erupts. In the wake of the tragic death of Renee Nicole Good, a woman fatally shot by an ICE agent, the pressure on lawmakers intensifies. Democrats are now making their voices heard, demanding that funding for ICE be restricted until accountability measures are put in place. This tragic incident has reignited the fierce debate over how much power should be granted to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. For many, this is no longer just a political issue, it's a moral one. The deaths, the family members left behind, the communities torn apart, it all adds to the fire. Lawmakers are under the microscope, with every decision scrutinized by a divided public. The Republicans, on the other hand, are resolute. Senate Majority Leader John Thune has expressed optimism that a bipartisan solution is still within reach, but there's a palpable sense of urgency. This crisis has further complicated the negotiations, and with each passing day, the situation grows more delicate. So what will happen next? What's really at play here is more than just a budget dispute. The political system is operating in a way that is both complex and hidden from the public's view. Behind the scenes, lawmakers are working on strategies to ensure that the government doesn't shut down, yet the mechanisms driving their decisions are far more intricate than a simple dollar-for-dollar negotiation. Appropriators are attempting to craft packages that satisfy both sides, including a proposal that might tie DHS funding to other legislation. But the real struggle is about control and power. Democrats want accountability within the DHS, especially in the wake of recent actions by ICE. They're demanding a level of oversight that would prevent the agency from operating unchecked. Republicans, on the other hand, are pushing to ensure that the nation's security apparatus remains intact and that immigration policies are not undermined. They are also attempting to avoid giving in to what they see as a slush fund for DHS. Both sides are locked in a battle of principles, with each unwilling to give ground on their core values. But as time runs out, the question remains, will a compromise emerge or will gridlock prevail? Just when it seemed like the situation couldn't get any more tense, a second crisis emerges. The looming deadline of January 30th, coupled with an unresolved DHS funding issue, intensifies the pressure on Congress. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Speaker Nancy Pelosi are facing their most difficult challenge yet. With each side digging in their heels, the looming threat of a partial shutdown grows ever clearer. This isn't just about funding, it's about what the American public will tolerate. What makes this even more complicated is the approaching recess. As lawmakers look to head back to their home states, congressional leaders fear the impact of a shutdown during such a critical moment. Tensions are high, and the stakes could not be clearer. Will the government stay open, or will we face another monumental crisis? As the clock ticks down, both sides are scrambling to reach an agreement. The real challenge now is finding common ground on the issue of DHS and the future of immigration policy. Can the parties find a way to compromise before the deadline, or will this second crisis push the country to the brink of disaster? When it comes to government shutdowns, it's easy to forget the human cost. But the truth is, it's the everyday citizens who bear the brunt of these political battles. Imagine being a federal worker suddenly furloughed, unsure of when you'll get your next paycheck. Or consider the families relying on essential government services, Social Security, veterans benefits, and healthcare programs, all of which can grind to a halt during a shutdown. As the debates over DHS funding intensify, it's not just about the political implications or the strategies in Washington. It's about real people, mothers, fathers, teachers, and healthcare workers who are just trying to make ends meet. And here's where things get even more personal. The shutdowns don't just affect workers. They ripple across the entire economy, causing instability for businesses, contractors, and individuals who depend on government stability. As these political titans battle it out, the question becomes who really wins and who loses in this complex game of politics. While the U.S. government teeters on the brink of a shutdown, the consequences aren't just confined to Washington, D.C. The ripple effects are global. The Department of Homeland Security isn't just a domestic agency, it has international ramifications. The U.S.'s immigration and security policies have far-reaching effects, influencing everything from global migration patterns to international trade. A shutdown could create a perception of instability that ripples through international markets, leading to a drop in investor confidence and economic uncertainty worldwide. On top of that, foreign governments will be watching closely to see how the U.S. handles its internal crises. Diplomatic relationships could be strained as foreign leaders question the U.S.'s ability to manage its own affairs. The State Department's operations are already feeling the pressure as funding dwindles. The fallout from a shutdown would send a message to the world that the U.S. is struggling to maintain control even within its own borders. In times of international tension, the credibility of the United States is tested. And right now, that credibility is hanging by a thread. As the deadline looms, we're left to wonder what happens next. There are three potential outcomes, each with its own set of consequences. The best-case scenario, Congress finally reaches a compromise securing funding for the Department of Homeland Security while addressing key concerns over immigration policies. The shutdown is averted, and the government functions smoothly, with both sides claiming victory. This scenario, though optimistic, would require significant bipartisan cooperation and a willingness to set aside partisan interests for the good of the country. The middle ground scenario, Congress passes a short-term extension, buying more time to work out the details. This would delay the shutdown, but it also kicks the can down the road, leaving the underlying issues unresolved. The DHS funding question remains, and the same political gridlock could re-emerge in the near future. The worst-case scenario, a government shutdown occurs. The U.S. is thrown back into chaos. Furloughed workers, halted services, and rising public frustration create a volatile situation. The global economy suffers from the uncertainty, and the U.S. political system is further polarized. The future of immigration policy hangs in the balance, and the country's international standing is weakened. What's clear is that the road ahead is uncertain, and the next few weeks will determine the course of the nation. As we look toward the future, one thing is certain: the decisions made in Washington over the next few weeks will have a profound impact on the lives of millions of Americans and on the world stage. The looming government shutdown is more than just a political battle, it's a moral and economic crossroads. The choices made about DHS funding and immigration policies will shape the future of the country for better or worse. The question remains, can Congress rise above the gridlock and do what's best for the nation? Or will they allow political posturing to push the country to the brink once again? As the deadline draws near, we all have a stake in the outcome. Your voice matters, whether it's reaching out to your representatives or simply staying informed. The power of an engaged public can change the course of history. So what do you think? Will Congress rise to the occasion, or will we see history repeat itself? Join the conversation, share your thoughts, and let's stay engaged as the drama unfolds.